Welcome to the Conservation Corps North Bay Training Module number 13, a brief introduction to applied behavior analysis. For our purposes, well, first of all, applied behavior analysis is a huge, huge field. I mean, people get PhDs in applied behavior analysis. So we're going to just talk about some of the techniques and strategies that may be useful in working with clients at the Conservation Corps North Bay. So it's just going to be a brief overview of applied behavior analysis. And for our purposes, applied behavior analysis can be defined as the systematic study of human behavior and how it is shaped and molded by the quality and quantity of stimulation from the environment. Now, we visited this particular diagram or image that you're seeing on your screen now many times during the course of this training. And it represents the different philosophical assumptions concerning how people learn or how their behavior changes. And if we're looking at the left side here, this side right here, it's the assumption that change comes about from an unfolding of the innate inner potential or the resolving of internal conflicts within the individual that were blocking healthy adjustment and development. So there were these dynamics within the individual, and the role of the supervisor or teacher or counselor or whoever who operates from this philosophical position is the role that they assume is that of building relationships with the client in order to facilitate the inner unfolding of the client's potential. Basically, what this position says is that change and learning begins within an individual. Now, on the right side of the screen over here, the right-hand side of the screen is the outer position, which assumes that change comes about through the quality and quantity of stimulation from the environment. Now, this position relies on the implementation of rules and rewards and punishments to shape and change behaviors and increase learning. And the role of the supervisor or teacher or counselor is that of establishing the rules and the rewards and punishments and delivering them when appropriate. In the middle is the interactive position, whose assumption is that learning and behavior change, yes, it does come about from inner unfolding, and it does come about from external stimulation, but it's the interaction of these. It's the interaction between the internal position and the outer position that causes behavior change. Now, you'll notice that under each of these positions are lists of different interventions that complement each of the positions. So these are the interventions that complement the interactive. These are the interventions that complement the outer. These are the interventions that complement the internal position. Now, pardon me, the interventions that are underlined in red are ones that we have already covered in previous modules. The interventions within the blue boxes are what we are going to talk about now. So this module is going to focus on the outer position on the right side of your screen, and we'll look at some of the interventions outlined in the blue boxes. Okay, now this screen depicts operant conditioning, which is a piece of applied behavior analysis, and we're talking about reinforcement. Now, reinforcement increases behavior, always increases behavior. So keep in mind, all reinforcement, positive as well as negative, increases behavior. Now let's take a look at the diagram. So we're interested in reinforcement and increasing behavior. Well, we have positive reinforcement, which is right here. Positive reinforcement. In essence, the box says to add or deliver a valued stimulus after a client produces a targeted behavior. So we would like a client to increase, let's say, inappropriate behavior. And so as soon as the client produces that behavior, we reinforce them. And then the behavior will continue to be reproduced. Let's take a look at a video that demonstrates this. This is from the Big Bang Theory.
Are you finished?
Thank you. How thoughtful. Would you like a chocolate?
Yeah, sure. Thanks. Oh, sorry, Sheldon. I almost sat in your spot.
Did you? I didn't notice. Have a chocolate.
Thank you.
You're here a lot now.
Oh, am I talking too much? I'm sorry. Sit.
Thank you. Chocolate?
Yes, please. Oh, hey, Kim. Yeah, you know what? Hold on. Let me take this in the hall. You'll never guess who they got to replace you at work.
Okay. I know what you're doing. Really? Yes. You're using chocolates as positive reinforcement for what you consider correct behavior. Very good. Chocolate?
Okay, well, that's sort of a silly example, but it does demonstrate positive reinforcement. Sheldon was using chocolate to try and reinforce and increase positive behavior. Good. Let's take a look at negative reinforcement. And there is positive negative reinforcement and negative negative reinforcement. So let's take a look at this one. Let's look at the positive side of negative reinforcement. In essence, the box says that the removal of a noxious stimulus will increase a targeted behavior. Let's look at this cartoon of the symptoms. So here's a family in the room, and there seems to be some kind of foul smell. And then it shows Homer taking the garbage out, and everyone is happy. So removal of the unwanted stimulus, taking the garbage out, that's the unwanted stimulus. The smell went away, and everyone was happy. So the idea is Homer will probably take the garbage out. That behavior will probably happen more often. That's the targeted behavior. So that's the positive side of negative reinforcement. Again, keep in mind, all reinforcement, positive and negative, increases behavior. So this is designed to increase Homer's behavior of taking out the garbage. Finally, let's look at the negative side of positive reinforcement. In essence, the box says producing the targeted behavior will avoid a noxious stimulus. And let's take a look at this. Here, the cartoon shows Kayla's dad posting a silly video of himself on YouTube, which is a noxious stimulus for Kayla. And Kayla's mom is telling her, if her math grade is below B, her father will post a video every day. According to reinforcement theory, Kayla will keep her math grade above B. That's the targeted behavior to increase her math performance, to avoid the noxious stimulus, her father's posting a video. Okay, so that is reinforcement theory. All reinforcement increases behavior. Positive reinforcement is delivering a positive reinforcer after a targeted behavior is produced. Negative reinforcement, two types, removing a noxious stimulus. So by taking out the garbage, the noxious stimulus, smell went away, and so Homer will increase his taking out garbage behavior. And the other one is if producing a behavior to avoid a noxious stimulus, and in this case, Kayla would increase her math score so she would avoid her father posting videos on YouTube. So that's reinforcement theory. And again, all reinforcement increases behavior. Now, there are some strategies in applied behavior analysis that are used to decrease behavior. And when we wish to decrease a targeted behavior, there is a hierarchy of alternative strategies ranging from the least intrusive, which are level 1 strategies right here, to level 4 strategies, which are the most intrusive. Now, level 1 offers 4 strategies using what's referred to as differential reinforcement. And these are options of first choice because they employ a positive reinforcement approach to behavior reduction. Level 2 uses extinction to decrease behavior. And extinction, actually sometimes referred to as planned ignoring, means withdrawing or no longer delivering the reinforcement that maintained the behavior. Level 3, which is the removal of desired stimuli and strategies like what are referred to as response cost and timeout procedures and presentation of adverse stimuli. We're not going to discuss these because these would be inappropriate for the type of client that the Conservation Corps North Bay works with. Pardon me. So we're going to focus on behavior reduction strategies that are level 1, the differential reinforcement, and level 2, extinction. So let's take a look at the first differential reinforcement of low rates of behavior. So differential reinforcement of lower rates of behavior, which is referred to as DRL, and by the way, you don't have to get caught up in memorizing these terms and memorizing these initials or anything. It's just the basic ideas that you should try and wrap your head around because these can be very useful for you. So the differential reinforcement of the lower rates of behaviors is the application of a specific schedule of reinforcement used to decrease the rate of behaviors that, while tolerable or even desirable in low rates, are inappropriate when they occur too often or too rapidly. As an example, contributing to a classroom discussion is a desirable behavior. Dominating the classroom discussion is not a desirable behavior. You're out in the field and your Corps member is doing a related task and doing it so rapidly that careless errors are made. This is not a good thing, not an appropriate thing. Burping occasionally, while hardly elegant, is tolerable. Burping 25 times an hour is neither. In each of these examples, setting a criteria of producing lower rates of the target behavior and reinforcing the client each time they meet the set criteria should result in the client producing lower rates of behavior. And by the way, keep in mind that this is talking about lower rates of behavior, but you could use it for if behavior rates were too high, you could use it to lower them down, or if they're too low, you could use them to increase rates of behavior. So that's the differential reinforcement of low rates or of high rates of behavior. Now let's take a look at the differential reinforcement of other behaviors. Differential reinforcement of other behaviors is when a reinforcing stimulus is delivered contingent on the target behaviors not being emitted for a specific period of time. Now, when we talked about differential reinforcement of lower rates of behaviors, which was the last screen we just looked at, the behavior was gradually reinforced. The reduction was gradual, whereas DRO reinforces only 0 occurrences of the behavior. So sometimes differential reinforcement of other behaviors is called differential reinforcement of 0 rates of behavior. Now let's assume you are working with a client who tends to talk too much in class. One way of helping the client to learn to engage more appropriately in discussions might be to have a conversation with the client. And in the conversation, you might discuss the advantages of their engaging in a more appropriate manner during class discussions. Other people won't be turned off by your constant talking. You'll have an opportunity to listen and hear others' points of views and ideas. You may learn more, and so on, etc., etc. Next, you can offer to help the client by setting some appropriate criteria for the amount of time they can talk during the class discussions. As an example, let's say during class discussion today, you can talk 3 times, but no more. Now, if the client is able to meet the criteria that you've set, only talking 3 times or less, then they receive some kind of predetermined reinforcement that you and the client agreed upon. And that is differential reinforcement of other behaviors. Now, let's take a look at extinction. Now, unlike the level 1 interventions that focus on providing reinforcement either to increase or decrease the targeted behavior, level 2 extinction reduces behavior by abruptly withdrawing or terminating the positive reinforcement that maintains an inappropriate target behavior. Extinction would be most often used when it is the counselor or teacher or supervisor their behavior is reinforcing the inappropriate behavior in the client. And when you immediately withdraw all reinforcement, or it's referred to as planned ignoring, you need to be careful of what's referred to as an extinction burst. The person has been reinforced for doing the behavior all along, and all of a sudden you're ignoring their actions, and therefore they may step up increasing the behavior in producing the behavior, because all along it was working fine, and now they're thinking, well, maybe I'm not doing it right. Maybe I've just got to really jack it up some more. So you need to expect. Well, okay, here we are. Well, that's it for the applied behavior analysis. Now we have covered the philosophical position about change from the internal perspective, and we have talked about all of these strategies that are underlined in red as interventions. We have talked about the interactive position and all of the strategies in your toolbox, which are right here, that are underlined. And finally, now we have talked about the outer position with the applied behavior analysis and reinforcement strategies, differential reinforcement strategies, and extinctions. So there is your entire toolbox. Thank you very much for participating in the training. We've really enjoyed it.